Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our little mini-series, 10 episodes around leveraging your entrepreneurial spirit here as podcasters and digging into this. Some of us, it's who we are. Some of us, it's who we want to be. And that's the idea for the episode, is we want to encourage you to harness what you have. If you're already an entrepreneur, great. If you're not, you can learn. There's things you can do that'll make your podcast a little bit better by leaning into this entrepreneur side of who you are. We're going to dive into that today here on the episode, and we're looking today at, this is part 5, and it's around risk-taking for people and how we embrace this uncertainty that we face as podcasters and in everyday life. How do we adapt and go around the idea of risk-taking in our show? Well, let's jump in. For podcast hosts and creators, embracing risk is essential for growing your podcast, for innovating on your show, building a truly engaging podcast that connects with people. This whole side of embracing risk is something that you're going to have to face with your show. And this entrepreneurial mindset that we're diving into and working through in this 10-part little series, it's marked by that willingness, again, to step into things that are uncertain, things that aren't firm and secure, things that aren't proven at sometimes, and how to learn from our setbacks and pursue these bold ideas. It translates really into the podcasting world in a great way, and we want to apply these principles into our own podcast journey. And we'll start here with some context as to why risk matters in podcasting. If you bear the burden and the flag of being an entrepreneur, then you got to navigate some pretty interesting things. You got to know a lot about a lot of things, including like financials, how your reputation is perceived and accepted by others. There's some emotional risks as well that entrepreneurs face, and podcasters face these in the same way. And it creates a lot of uncertainty for many people. Launching a new show or a new format without guaranteed audience acceptance, that's a risk. Investing time and resources and equipment and marketing and collaborating with others, that's a risk. Sharing your personal stories. Being out there on the internet for everyone and anyone to find you and hear your story. Bringing up controversial topics and things that might invite criticism or make people not want to like you anymore, that's a risk. And reaching out to high-profile guests and them saying no, that's a risk. And experimenting even like with live events, like doing a live podcast recording or whatever, these are all risks that are associated with podcasting. Growth in podcasting as an entrepreneur requires stepping outside of your comfort zone and by being more open to the unknown. And because in the unknown is where you're going to find a lot of great opportunities. The path well traveled, and that's been done by everyone, is not that unique. It's when you go into the unknown, that's when you find some creative and unique ways to build your show and to be a great podcaster. What are some practical strategies then for podcast creators? First, we need to evaluate any risk, and we need to do it thoughtfully. Starting right really matters here. So having a thoughtful approach to evaluating your risks, a good idea. Before you make any leap, whether it's starting a new series, introducing a controversial topic, or investing time and money in advertising for your show, if you want to do that, write down the potential risks. Are they financial risks? So you got to buy new equipment, a new mic, you got to pay for a new thing. Is it reputational risks? How will your audience react to this new thing? Or is it an emotional risk? A fear of rejection, a fear of failing, a fear of making the wrong choice. And then this clarity helps to reduce any anxiety that you might have and help you make better decisions. So evaluate the risks thoroughly. That's the first step in a practical strategy for us as podcast creators around risk. The second one around risk is to start small and build confidence. Big swings, big changes, huge overhauls, complete refocused or redirected shows. That's hard because it's huge. It's overwhelming. So my encouragement for you when you're talking about risks associated with your show would be to start small and build confidence by taking smaller steps. Don't feel pressured to take massive risks immediately. Try small experiments. And what I'm finding when I listen to podcast gurus is they have one format or one way that worked for them as a podcaster, and then they try to get everyone to do it their way. So everyone starts to sound, look, and act like they do. But there's not just one way for you to make your show better. So I get a little bit annoyed by these one and done podcast gurus, and every episode's exactly the same. Do these 5 steps. Here's my 5 rules for podcasting. Here's my 5 rules for this. Here's my fancy, funny named thing for that. And in that, I'm finding them to be quite irrelevant because they're not even listening to the person that they're talking to and trying to help with their show. They're just there to spout off their limited knowledge about what works in podcasting because they never tried anything else. They've only done one thing. They're one and done. I don't enjoy that. I think that, and for the most part, when they do that, they're doing big changes to people's shows, not small ones like we're talking about here. So don't feel pressured to take these gurus' advice as, the most important thing for your show and rebuild everything. You might not need to. Test a new segment in smaller decisions and smaller risk just by testing a new segment for a few episodes, getting some feedback. As well, invite a guest outside of your usual niche and what you talk about. Ask somebody onto your show that's different than what you would normally do. That's a little risk, right? It's not crazy, but maybe it's something that's adjacent to what you talk to, something that's in addition to what you talk to, but maybe from a different perspective. Invite a guest that's outside of your normal guesting that you would normally find for your show. Take a little bit of a risk. Bring them in. You might find some interesting conversations happen from that. Share a more personal story in one of your episodes. And then measure the response. What do you hear back from people when you take these little risks? Test a new segment. Invite a guest on that you might not normally have on your show. And then share a little more of your personal side. These little small wins and small tests around a risk will help you to see which things are working and what's not. And it's not so daunting. Another thing is to create a risk wish list. This is a list that's bigger, bolder moves that you'd like to try on your show. Perhaps you want to try live streaming. Maybe you want to try launching a paid membership for your podcast. You want to get on Substack and start writing blogs about your topic. Or pitching yourself to a major media outlet. Your local news or TV or radio or something. Revisit this list regularly and keep your ambitions up front and center. You never know when these opportunities are going to arise. And if you're not aware of it, it's not on your radar, you're probably going to miss them. So create a risk wish list and see what you put down there and see what comes true. Visualize your rewards as well. When you focus on the opportunities over the risk, it can bring more engagement with your audience. It can bring new partnership opportunities, or it'll help you grow. When we leverage this potential upside of visualizing the rewards that come from risk, it can help motivate and push you through some of that initial discomfort where you're a little hesitant to try this new idea. Visualize the reward. What would happen if this does work? Instead of always focusing on, well, what if this doesn't? It might just work. Then what? And then celebrate every step along the process. Again, I talk about the ideas that it's not just about celebrating the destination, it's celebrating the journey. Acknowledge and reward yourself for every little risk you take, big or small. And when it's this positive reinforcement that's happening, it encourages you to be more proactive and stick with it. So celebrate. When you try something and it works, don't just move on to the next thing on your list. Take time to celebrate and rejoice that this idea turned into something great. What are some takeaways for this as we leverage our entrepreneurial spirit around risk-taking? Some key takeaways for you as a podcaster. Calculated risk is not recklessness. You're not being reckless when you take risks, especially when you have spent some time doing your homework. A successful entrepreneur and podcaster, they're very similar. And they approach risk with planning and with a willingness to accept the very worst case scenario if it ever would come to pass, because it's part of the plan. Remember that setbacks are learning opportunities. Not every bold move will succeed. Not every idea is great. But each one of these things, they offer us a lesson, and it can really help us to improve our podcast and strengthen our show, reach more people. When we're complacent, that is one of the hidden risks that people don't really address. Sticking only to what is safe can lead to your show kind of getting boring over time. It's stagnating. A pond that has no water coming in or out over time gets stagnant and turns into a swampy mess because there's no life to that pond and there's no way the fresh water makes its way in. And after a while, you don't want to swim there. You don't want to fish there. It becomes a mess. When we're complacent, we become stagnant, just like that pond. We need opportunities for us to find growth and find ways to make our show different, better, and that we're growing as people as well. Risk-taking is a muscle. The more you practice taking risks in life with your podcast, the more comfortable and skilled you are at becoming and navigating uncertainty around you and your show and whatever you have in front of you. One of the person I was looking at for this episode, her name is Sherry, and she said, I don't see them as risks. I see them as calculated decision-making, understanding fully what could happen. Here's some stuff you can maybe think about trying for your own show around taking risks. As the host of the show, whether you're an interview podcaster, a solo podcaster, or whatever you are, share your own things where you took a risk. Tell people about them. Tell them your story, your wins and your failures. This is really going to help you to build into your audience that authentic approach, and people are going to feel connected with you because you're willing to share your own stories. And then feature guests who have taken bold steps in their careers or lives, highlighting what they've learned. Encourage your listeners to take small creative tasks and share their experiences with your community. By embracing our uncertainty and taking calculated chances, you're not only going to grow as a podcaster, but you're also going to inspire your audience to do the exact same thing for their communities. It's time to podcast in public. Don't just show people the nice, finished, edited version of yourself. Allow people to see behind the curtain, because that's when they're going to identify with you as a real person, not the edited, perfected version that we like to put out there on social media and through our podcast, but the person we are in real life day to day. Leverage that, focus on that, and let that be the one thing that helps you to leverage your entrepreneurial spirit. When we take risks, we need to embrace the uncertainty that comes with them. And I would love to hear what risks that you're thinking about taking with your show, big or small, and how you're going to approach it from your perspective for your specific podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you're working on and see if there's any way that I can help you, and even if it just be a listening ear to bounce ideas off of howtopodcast.ca. Love to talk to you. Thanks for being here. So I get asked quite often, usually at the end of a podcast, like right now, Dave, how can we help you? Like, how can we, as a listener, like, support the show? Can we come rake your leaves? Can we cut the grass? Shovel the snow? Watch your dog? Help you move? What can we do? Clean your dishes? Oh, that'd be interesting. Well, if you can't do that because, you're in Poland, maybe you can help us by supporting us with our Buy Me a Coffee. It's right there on our website. And, it just will help us to, A, stay fueled because, we drink a lot of coffee around here. And it helps the show. So if you want to help us, it's out of the goodness of your heart. I can tell you that listening to the podcast to this point, you've already helped us so much. But I do have people saying, Dave, I'd love to give back something small, even just to the show. Buy Me a Coffee link is on our website at howtopodcast.ca. And you can support the show that way. It would mean a lot to have you on our team supporting what we do here. If you find value in the show, then that's great. Share the show, tell somebody about it. And when somebody says, Dave, I want to start a podcast, who should I check out? Oh, you should go check out the How to Podcast series because of all the great co-hosts and all the things that happen here, the meetups, everything. And I would appreciate that. And then fill our cup once in a while if you can. But again, thank you so much for being here and supporting the How to Podcast series. Take care. Talk soon.